Oh, I wish I were an Oscar Mayer wiener. How the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile bought me my first house. Hey, I'm Taylor Bagnick and welcome back to my channel. So it might sound crazy, but my first job out of college was driving the one and only Oscar Mayer Wienermobile. So you might be asking yourself, how in the world did the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile buy me my first house? Well, I will tell you, but I have to set the scene. So I went to Penn State, was where I graduated from college. My major was in broadcast and my minor was in entrepreneurship and innovation. So I had big dreams to be on the radio. I wanted to work for iHeartRadio. I had worked for a radio station up at Penn State. That was my dream with being in broadcast up at Penn State. So the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile used to recruit at Penn State every year. They recruit at the top communications colleges. So I had reached out to them my junior year while they were up on campus, like, hey, what is this all about? Is this an internship? How can I apply? And the hot doggers had let me know that you can apply when you are getting ready to graduate. You do have to have a college degree in order to drive the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile. It is a PR firm on wheels. So you are the face of Kraft Heinz Company and Oscar Mayer. You are driving across the country doing newspaper, television, radio appearances, doing parades, events, fairs, all kinds of cool stuff. Also, we had to negotiate our hotels that we would be living at. So it was a lot of different things incorporated with the job for Oscar Mayer, things that you wouldn't even think of outside of just driving the actual vehicle. And yes, we drove the vehicles. We did not have a driver. We would get asked that all the time. So junior year, I was asking about the hot dogger position. They said, one more year, young buck, you have to wait until you're about to graduate. So they come back up to Penn State my senior year. I was super excited. They came and you had to go to this orientation where they would take your cover letter and resume. And if you were going to get an interview, you were going to get a call that night. If you didn't get a call that night, sorry, you're out of luck. You didn't make the cut. So I went, I gave them my cover letter and resume, introduced myself, and I got a call later that night. It was like 8:45. I was super excited for an interview the next day. So I had an interview and it was the most intense interview I have ever been in my entire life. I thought that I was nailing these questions, but she was giving me nothing. Her name was Rachel. I love her to death now that I know her. But during the interview, I was like, oh my gosh, she does not like me whatsoever. There's no way I'm getting this. All of my friends were asking me, how did it go? And I had to keep telling them, I think that I did good, but I do not think that she liked me at all. So after they left Penn State, if you were going to make it to the final round of interviews, they were going to email you. And so I waited and I got the interview. So the last round of interviews, they flew 24 people out to Madison, Wisconsin for the final interview process. And at that point, they were picking 12 from 24. And I was gung-ho. I'm like, I only have to beat out half of these peeps. I got this. I have made it this far. I am going to be a hot dogger. That is going to be my first job out of college. So I go to Wisconsin. They had 3 different groups. So I was, I think, the last group that went. Save the best for last, duh. And there were about maybe like 7 to 10 of us. And it was a 2-day interview process. It, to this day, was the most extensive interview process that I have ever been a part of. So you had a welcome day where they just describe the job even more, show you all the apparel. I have my fancy sweatshirt on right now. and just talk you through the process, get to know you a little bit better. You get to know all the people that are interviewing better as well. And then the next day, it was all day interviews. You had a video interview where they had you on camera. So that was the PR portion where they were grilling you with questions to see how you answer on camera, how comfortable you are. You had to sing the Oscar Mayer jingle, so I had to be prepared for that. And then you went and met with all different people of the Kraft Heinz organization. They took this very seriously because, like I said, whoever they're selecting, you are the face of Kraft Heinz and Oscar Mayer for an entire year. So ultimately, as you can guess, I got selected. So out of the thousands of applicants that applied, they pick 12 every year. So there's 6 Wienermobiles that are spread out all across the country. So they have Northeast, Southeast, West Coast, like the mid areas. They spread us all out across the United States. So it's a coast-to-coast wiener roast. There are Wienermobiles all across the country, spreading miles of smiles, and you had to cut the mustard in order to get the job. So all puns aside, it was a fantastic experience. So after I graduated college, I got flown out again to Madison, Wisconsin, where we went to Hot Dog High, which was a 2-week training program where we did extensive PR training for learning the material, learning how to interview for the company when it came to the newspaper, television, and radio appearances, on everything what our mission was, why we were out spreading miles of smiles, the history behind the Wienermobile and the weenie whistle. So all kinds of things. We went through an extensive interview process with learning all of the material and continuing to get more and more comfortable on camera. And we also had to learn how to drive the vehicle. So they had Madison police officers who taught us how to drive the Wienermobile. We had to go through an entire course. Think of it like driving education on steroids. Like, we had to learn in a very fast period of time. We ended up having to do logs as if we were truck drivers to make sure that we didn't go over a certain amount of hours when we were driving the Wienermobile. So it was such an insane experience and so much fun and so many incredible memories to this day. So I drove the Wienermobile. We also drove with the Nutmobile as well, the Planners Peanut Mobile. They travel with 3 people because they travel with Mr. Peanut. So an amazing experience. So over the course of that year, my salary for driving the Wienermobile was $30,000. This was back in 2016. I was class 29 of hot doggers. They're now at class 35, which is insane, which I hear that they got a pay increase. But back when I drove the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile in 2016, the salary was $30,000 for the year. I also got a weekly stipend of, I believe, $150 a week. I was just asking some of my hot dogger colleagues if that was the right amount, but I'm pretty positive that's what it was. It's been a few years, so I forget, but it was right around $150 a week. That was for travel, if we wanted to take Ubers instead of driving the Wienermobile to the mall, the grocery store, the bowling alley, the movies, whatever we wanted to do outside of work. Most times we just drove the Wienermobile, and we were allowed to as well as like food and other expenses, plus our salary. So for me, I was trying my hardest to just live off of that $150 a week. I had no expenses whatsoever. I didn't have a car payment. I didn't have rent or a house payment. We stayed at hotels, which we had to negotiate the hotels that we stayed at. A lot of times I would try to stay at very specific hotels that had complimentary breakfast. They would have happy hours. I highly recommend Staybridge Suites. I used to love staying at Staybridge Suites because me and my partner, we could get a suite that had 2 separate rooms. It had a kitchenette, had a little living room area. So it was like a little hotel. And we were typically in these, an area for a week at a time. So we would travel in on Monday. We would typically have off Tuesday, Wednesday to settle in, explore the area. We would always go and do all the touristy things in whatever state we were in, eat the food that you have to eat when you go to visit. And then Thursday through the weekend, we would do events. So parades, marathons, grocery store events. We would go to the commissaries on military bases. We went to racetracks. And then, as I had mentioned, radio, television, and newspaper appearances, which was the big appeal for me. I wanted to make connections all across the country with every iHeartRadio that I possibly could, because that was my dream, was to work for them after my 1-year stint was up with the Wienermobile. So going back to the money portion of all, I really didn't have many expenses, and I was being very smart with my money. And you'd be surprised, a lot of people gave us free stuff just because we drove the Wienermobile, or invited us to their houses for dinner, or to go, they would give us free Disney tickets to the parks, or all kinds of free stuff. Honestly, people were so nice when we were on the road. So I tried to stay within my $150 a week, which was pretty easy for me because I'm coming off of being a poor college student, which $150 to $200 a week, that was easy day for me in college to live off of that with $1 Long Island iced teas. So try to live off of the $150 a week. I would food shop as much as possible, but I also didn't want to restrict myself from trying the new things at the whatever place I was visiting as well. I wasn't going to say no to opportunities, but ultimately I've always been a saver and very good with money. So at the end of my 1 year with the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile, from my $30,000 salary, I was able to save $20,000. So I did a pretty good job at saving and living off of my weekly stipend. So with that $20,000, after the Wienermobile was done, my now husband and I, we moved to Pensacola, Florida, where he was going to be in flight school. So there was an iHeartRadio about 45 minutes from where we were going to be living. So I drove on up in the Wienermobile and let them know, hey, my name's Taylor. I drive the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile right now, but I'm going to be living here in a few months, and I would love the opportunity to work for you. And they practically hired me right on the spot. They're like, what in the world? Like, if you can drive up in an Oscar Mayer Wienermobile and have that much guts, sure, we'll figure out a spot for you. So I had worked in sales for them for 6 months before I got an on-air shift where I was on TK 101, the Gulf Coast rock station, as well as managing 8 stations. I handled all of their websites and social media. I was their web content director. And with that $20,000 little nest egg that I had, we rented for a few months. It was from October to May. We rented while we were in Pensacola. It was beautiful. We were right on the beach at it was a seasonal rental. So that's why we had to be out by May so that they could get people in Memorial Day through the summer. But it worked out perfectly for us. And we ended up purchasing down there a new construction build with D.R. Horton. So that $20,000 that I had saved from the Wienermobile was Chris and I's first down payment for one of our houses. And that house is still to this day netting $600 a month after the mortgage is paid off, which is phenomenal. So we are super excited and happy that we started building our investment portfolio while we were stationed in Pensacola. And all thanks to the Wienermobile, I was able to have the savings that we needed for that first down payment and closing cost. So it really is not about the amount of money that you are making. It is about how you are saving and investing those funds. So I know in previous videos I had said that I bought our first house off of making $30,000 a year. Obviously, this was a very unique situation where I had the opportunity to save, but it is possible to save for a down payment, whether you are single or in a relationship where you can put your funds together in order to invest in a property. So that is my fun story about my first job out of college with the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile and how it helped me to purchase my first investment property. If you yourself are wondering how you can best maximize what you are making and your income and how you can achieve financial freedom and start saving so that you as well can purchase in the future, please feel free to talk to me. I am on my own wealth building journey, and I am happy to share how I got started at the age of 21 to now having 5 properties with my husband. It is achievable, I promise. No matter what market we are in, there is opportunity in front of you. So let me help you, and thank you so much for tuning into my channel. And if you could like, review, subscribe, comment, I would greatly appreciate it. And let's continue to build our unreal lives. Peace.